You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. Oh, my God. The shrillness of the Iron Lady just gets right me there in the morning, jabs me in the ears, wakes me up, and that's why I like it. I almost should attach her voice to my coffee maker, you know what I mean? So that way I'll be standing there at the coffee maker half dead. I'm like a bear in the morning, I've been told, where it takes me a couple hours to finally wake up and become a human being, crawling out of my hibernation for the night. And I need one of those Iron Ladies right on my machine, so as I'm standing there trying to engage with a coffee maker, it's like, the Chris Voss Show! And then I'll just be like shocked into awakeness, that or I'll have a heart attack and die. Either way, I'm still here. Guys, we have an amazing author on the show. We're going to be talking about his amazing insights in business and marketing and all that sort of good stuff. His newest book just came out in 2023. It's called Escapology: How to Turn Your Carbon Copy B2B Company into a Growth Machine with Differentiation, Positioning, and Unturn-Downable Offers. There you go. Matt Hodkinson joins us on the show. We'll be talking to him about his amazing book and insights. And it had come out April 18th, 2023. We always give the dates because you people on YouTube 10 years later like to go, it's not new. So you guys kill me every single time. Matt is the Differential Dawn, a B2B marketing and growth agency owner of 14 plus years, turned coach and consultant, hell-bent on elevating the language that companies use to communicate their value proposition to great fit clients. He even wrote a book on it, The Escapology, which became a bestseller in 2023. He's a former IT consultant himself. Over the past 14 years, he's helped more than 200 consultancies and other B2B organizations to achieve full differentiation, command attention with great fit prospects, and drive more consistent pipeline by making the competition irrelevant. Actually, that's the pickup line I use at bars. Welcome to the show. How are you, Matt?
I'm absolutely great. Thank you for having me, Chris. Great intro.
There you go. When you tell girls that you can drive more consistent pipeline by making the competition irrelevant, they just give you their number at the bar. So
they would. If I wasn't happily married for several years, they absolutely would. I missed that boat.
Well, I've tested it for you, so there you go. So Matt, give us your .coms. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
The best way to find us is, find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on there. So it's Matt Hodkinson. And the other one is totalgrowthownership.com, which is the consultancy that I run that helps consultancies to achieve everything you've just said.
There you go. And it's why do these consultancies need so much help, according to your analysis and study?
I think they've played it too safe, essentially. It's a very competitive space. And I think when we are in business, we're trying to figure things out. We've got 1,000 fires to fight. We take the path of least resistance sometimes. And that means looking over the fence, looking at those competitors who seem to be absolutely smashing it, and maybe pick up some of what they're putting down and essentially copy them, use the same language. If it's working for them, it's going to work for us. And of course, the reality is you're just going to look the same. You're going to sound the same, and you're not going to stand out. And you'll know this, Chris. I mean, you've got to stand out. You've got to be attention worthy first and foremost before you can have any chance of growing your business. And that's really the problem that they have.
Yeah, definitely. So give us a 30,000 overview of what's inside the book, some of the tips and tricks. You have a lot of great word. I don't know what the right word for what you do is. The wordisms that you have.
Like the wordplay.
So go ahead and give us a 30,000 overview of the book, if you would.
Yeah, well, really, what I wanted to do is get the message out to a broader audience. We're never going to be short of business. There are plenty of companies that can come to us to get our help as a consultancy. But I see a lot of solo consultancies, a lot of others in B2B, outside the consultancy space, those in professional services, legal, for example, whole bunch of different sectors who suffer from the same issue. So what I wanted to do is get my message out. And what I've done essentially is share our entire process front to back. And a lot of people would say, why would you give away your intellectual property? Why would you give away your process to people? They'll just do it for themselves, won't they? Well, do you know what? I hope that some will. And for the ones that need the help, for the ones that have got a bigger scale business, they're struggling to find the time, they need the assistance, the accountability that we can help to bring, then they're going to come to us anyway. So it was really important for me to not hold back, to share the whole picture, make it really a workbook for success when it comes to positioning and differentiation, and put it in the hands of some great people out there. And thankfully, that's been the case.
Do you find that I know that SaaS runs a lot of SaaS programs run in the B2B space? Do you find that SaaS companies fall in that category?
Yeah, we do. I mean, increasingly so, because I think a lot of the sub niches, a lot of the specific needs of those SaaS companies have been accounted for, and the variations of the technology now. For those that are true sort of category makers, then they don't need to differentiate. They're really on a hiding to nothing if they try and look like somebody else. What they're doing is creating something that hasn't been seen before. So less of an issue with those truly innovators, but yeah, for some of them, it really can be the case that they're in a competitive area. They're really trying to stand out. It's such a common problem. And here's the thing, Chris, what I see people doing is a lot of people shouting louder, doing more marketing, trying to be more visible without really sorting this underlying message. It's not how loud you say something, it's what you say.
And maybe how you say it. I don't know.
Yeah, that as well. That too.
That what gets me in trouble with the girls that give me their phone number. It's how I say it and the way I say it. But anyway. Dating jokes are just the callback for the show, I guess, today. One of the things you talk about is how to stand out and kind of dress up your business, if you will. Is dress up a good word, or what word would you use in trying to ditch the dull, as it were?
Yeah, I think really it's about getting a new vocabulary. I mean, you're a wordsmith. I know, I've heard your shows, and also, I mean, let's face it, you've got a personality, and that comes out in everything. That's your position.
I got 6 of them.
Oh, great! You can
there's
pick
Bob,
and choose.
There's Jane. There's Margaret. There's
yeah, I've got some on weekends as well. But no, it's about a new vocabulary, because let's face it, what we say creates the perceptions about what we do, about who we are, about how we're different from all those others out there. So it's actually, language is the most important thing for me. And I'll give you a tip right from the off. And this is for anybody that's looking to really grab attention in what, let's face it, a really noisy world. We use a very limited amount of our vocabulary, especially those who speak the English language. And what I'd encourage you to do is, look, when you're describing what you do, when you're describing yourself, when you're having conversations with prospects and clients and whoever it might be, try and steer clear of the language you would hear on a daily basis. There are certain words that we hear every single day. In my world, there are words like innovation and transformation and change and disruption, exactly. And that's become common parlance. So when you say those words, it doesn't spark any sort of pattern interrupt to what we're doing. It doesn't stop the scroll. It doesn't get us paying attention to you. Find those words that you might encounter once a week or even once a month, and make sure it's still relevant. Of course, you can't be too left field with this stuff. It's still got to make sense. But that's how you're going to command attention and really break through.
And it sounds like, I mean, even if you're not B2B, if you're just a regular entrepreneur or smaller company or something, using these ways to kind of pop your brand and make it more interesting. One of the things I always notice is there's a couple of these commercial makers. I know there's one that kind of does them all, and they take a lot of boring products and they make these commercials that are jazzed up and sparked up. And they take mattresses. I think they did an ad for purple mattresses, and they popped it up to where they made it this fun, goofy, you enjoyed watching it. There was one that
Yeah.
was what was it? It was a poop sitter where when you sit down to poop, it's a platform that sits under your feet that's supposed to put the
Yes, I saw
muscles in the
that.
right place or something, so everything
Yeah.
comes out right. And then he had like he had like a unicorn pooping out rainbow stuff, and I mean you just gotta watch it. And you're like, really, we're doing pooping on commercials now, but they made it funny, and that's sort of pop taking some of these brands that are kind of sleeper and kind of like bleh, or as you
Yeah.
say in the book, meh. It gives them that pop. So is that a good example of some of the things
It really
you
is.
teach in the book?
Yeah. And you're talking about it years later with a lot of these instances, and that's
Hmm.
really the marker of a great a true disruptor, to use that word again.
Huh.
But here's the thing: is that yeah, these brands, and I've niched in the B2B world, and I've niched in the consultancy space even. But the reality is, this is human behavior we're talking about. It's going to impact on B2C and brands as well as the B2B world. But it is about being remarkable. It's about coming out with something that is different. And what I've noticed, Chris, is that the best companies or the best positioned companies in the world, they either stand strongly for or strongly against something. They've got a stance. And typically that's quite a polarizing stance. A few people are going to have their noses put out of joint, but a lot of people are going to be nodding vehemently in agreement with you. The key is not to be vanilla. I mean, we think about the likes of, Virgin over the years with Richard Branson. Love him or hate him, Elon Musk, and he had the Boring Company, which was actually about boring holes rather than boring. And he even had a business that was about a flamethrower. I think that might have actually been the Boring Company that brought out the flamethrower. But we don't need any sort of indicators that Elon Musk is thinking on a different plane, standing out, grabbing attention. But this is the thing. It's about being remarkable. We know those people, we know those brands because they stood out, because they were differentiated, because they weren't afraid to put their head above the parapet and stand out.
Well, there you go. Tell us a little about yourself, your history. How did you grow up? What influenced you and got you in the fields that you're in today?
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, I say it's interesting. It's probably not. But I originally started. I started off as a. I started off as a consultant myself. So I spent about 17 years, on the ground working with clients in the IT space. And I'll be completely honest, it was a means to an end for me. I wasn't passionate about technology in any way. There was a lot of work around. It was very well paid, but all the time I was working out, what's this side hustle I can create that really is aligned with what I'm about. And so I taught myself marketing. In fact, initially I taught myself search engine optimization in the early days of Google. And it was very easy back then. You spun up a few articles, you put the right keywords in a certain number of times, you were number one all of a sudden within hours. And suddenly things changed. And I got into bed with HubSpot and became a partner of them, got into this whole world of inbound marketing, created an inbound marketing agency, which I ran for 11 years. And it's during that time that I figured out that the reason marketing doesn't work for a lot of businesses is because of the underlying position and message that's being put out by this company. How are they describing the value that they bring? And we as an agency actually found that difficult. We weren't equipped at the time. I had to educate myself on this and dive deep into this problem. Anyway, that gave rise to an opportunity came along, an agency came along, tried to acquire us. In fact, 3 of them did. I chose one. We pressed ahead. I sold that agency back in 2021, towards the end of the pandemic, and didn't look back. The next day, I set up TGO. We were all in on positioning, messaging, differentiation, being a version of that ourselves as well. You'll appreciate, Chris, that when you help people to stand out, you've got to stand out yourself. So I like to think our branding, our messaging, we are the world's only growth positioning consultancy. And that's essentially what's brought me to today.
Mm-hmm. How do you, you talk about in the book how you help people assess how much being meh is costing them. How do you kind of determine that, or can you tease a little bit of that on how much difference it can make on maybe the bottom line of your company?
Absolutely. Yeah, it comes down to, you've got to be able to quantify these things because you'll appreciate to convince people that they need to reposition, to change their language. It's quite a hard sell, I'll be honest.
You just walk up to them and go, "You're boring as F."
Do you know what? My job is to tell people that their baby is ugly, and that always goes down well. So,
Oh yeah, that's. I also use that in dating, and that didn't go well either. So.
we'll get you, I'll get you some numbers as
Hey,
well.
honey,
Uh,
your that baby sure is ugly. You want some DNA that isn't? And
yeah, do you want some baby makeup?
anybody who's seen
Yeah,
me
so
on the show knows that's a lie.
that's essentially
Uh,
what I'm doing. I'm selling baby makeup. But yeah, so what we do, how we quantify it is we look at what is the average size of a deal for these companies. What are they likely losing out on? And we look at the cadence of what they're doing and how much new business they're bringing on. And then we've had some great case studies from our own work with these clients. We've got some good baseline data. So things like, for example, we've had clients who have doubled their revenue in the space of a year by fixing their positioning. We've had those that have 6x their pipeline value within weeks. We've had others that have increased their pricing by 15% or more with no buyer resistance whilst doing it. And we've had others, just had a client recently who halved their sales cycle from 6 months to 3. And of course, that makes a huge difference. You can quantify those things and add them up in the context of a client that might be selling a contract for, let's say, 100K, and say, if you sold twice the number of those in the coming year versus last year. And that's the kind of impact that positioning can have. And of course, it's going to be different for everybody. But I think it's important to show them there is commercial impact from this. It's not just fluffy language and marketing kind of black magic.
yeah. It's so many people, they go into business, and I'm one of those people that I have a problem with that popping. So I when I used to create a lot of my companies, we would just have your normal blah office, basically white walls, the original walls that came with the place. And my employees would come in and be like, "Hey, can we paint the walls in here? It's like really dull in here." And I'm like, "No, it's a dead office experience you're getting." And I always love companies, like restaurants and other places where you would walk into them and they would have just that opulence of beauty, and someone had that sort of artistic mindset that could take something and make it look really spectacular and feng shui and feel good and stuff. And I just never had that skill. I'm really good at logic and reason in business, but when it comes to making something look emotionally appealing, makes all the difference. And people buy with emotion, so that's kind of a clear factor that you need to think about if your business is meh, because people buy from emotion. They buy off of how they feel about a brand, and using language and different techniques that are visual for people can help them. They'll make a better determination. I mean, it's kind of like, remember that old, what was that old IBM man thing that they used to have back in the day in the 50s? Like everybody at IBM had to wear the black suit, the black tie, the black shoes, the black hat.
Right.
Everybody had to, no one could wear colors because, oh my God, the world might explode if we do colors. And that's kind of probably a good analogy maybe for what you're talking about with meh companies that are just blasé, they're just common, they just all look the same. And so the great thing about where most people look the same is if you can figure out a way to stand out, it can make all the difference in the world, and people follow you. Even if they
we see it.
don't
We
like
see
the
it every day.
colors you use or something.
Yeah, I mean, it is that different. I mean, the reality is we actually, as human beings, we crave difference. We crave things that are different. It's why there are so many marital affairs in the world, let's face it. And I'm still not going to that bar to get those numbers, by the way. But it is, we look for what's different. We are looking for the colorful walls in the office. We're looking for the restaurant that appeals to us and, appeals to our sensibilities. And you're absolutely right. We make more decisions based on emotion. And then later on, we'll ratify it with some logic along the way as well. But first of all, we've got to fall in love with it first. Nobody bought a Ferrari because they first thought, oh, yeah, that's going to give me good gas mileage. You know what I mean? They fell in love with that red beast of a machine with that throaty V8 going down the road past them. And that's what they fell in love with. And then they thought, can I afford this thing? And can I afford to keep it on the road? And then they went and bought it. So, yeah, absolutely. That's how we do things.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes people don't pay attention to if they can afford it or not on the back end. The repos in cars right now are through the roof because most people bought these cars back when the prices went like it was insane. There was like I saw a pickup truck for $200,000. A
Yeah.
pickup truck, like I could pay 200,000 for a Porsche, but not for a pickup truck. I don't know, especially one that you might trash because if you're working the construction business, you can scrape the hell out of it. But
Yeah.
it's about that pop. People have to realize that people buy hype, they buy spin. I mean, emotion is the big seller. Probably another version is you go on the lot and everyone's like, hey, we got a whole collection of these white cars. They're just flat white and basic interior. Do you want to buy one? People are like, no, I want something that pops. I want a red one.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're gonna get more tickets. And they're like, yeah, but I might get more girls. It's there's also different aspects, and people have different personalities too. You have to appeal to as well. What are
Yeah.
some things on the book we haven't touched on that we should talk about and tease out? I know you had some interesting isms, as it were. You had twinning, not winning, same ism. Tell us about
Yeah.
twinning and not winning.
Yeah, I mean that's really that concept of looking and sounding like others in your category. I mean, even occupying the same category as others. I
Mm.
think there have been some category creating businesses along the way. When Airbnb and Uber came along, they're always held up as the examples of these really true disruptors who are bringing a new proposition to market and really, giving a massive alternative. And what they can't be compared with is others in their category. There's nobody there. They really are in a
Mm-hmm.
blue ocean where everybody else scraps in the red ocean for for whatever business might still be swimming around in those shark infested waters. So I think there is an opportunity to stand out, not just from the language perspective, but by also identifying as a different category. Again, using language to do that as well, but
Mm-hmm.
describing yourself in ways that others wouldn't be able to do. The classic, Chris, is we've worked with a number of digital transformation consultancies. It's a very popular area. There are lots of businesses occupying that category right now. So if I come and meet you at a networking event, you say to me, what do you do? And I say, we're a digital transformation consultancy. Now, if you're in that space, you're going to say, well, I know 1,000 of those. And even if you Googled them, you would get tens of thousands of results. It's
Yeah.
a big red ocean. Now, if I were to say to you that, I'll give a more sort of robust example that is about bringing some sort of value to the customer. Well, it might be that I halve your production costs by completely revamping your technology and replacing your legacy tech within weeks.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, I'm not lumping myself. I'm not mentioning digital transformation consultancy. I'm not mentioning digital transformation. That's the meh. And this is really appealing to the person in front of me. And if they're a candidate, they're going to say, oh, I need to know more. Tell me more about that. And that's what I'm really looking to spark is I effing love that. I need to hear some more about that. Tell me more.
Ah, there you go. You got to make it pop. You got to make it stand out. You don't want to be, I don't know, just like the everyman. And
Yeah.
it. There's an example I talk about in my book, where I went out to steal a client from a competitor. We were brand new. This is going to be our first client, and we had, we were just still building the company. And I went out and met with the client, and they were, the biggest question they had in their mind was, you have this great vision. You seem like a really nice guy. You're offering a little bit cheaper price, but can you really do what you're going to build? What you're going to build? Because
Yeah.
we're doing it. And so I had to go sell with my personality, and they bought us off of my personality, without my ability to sell, without my ability to kind of be a guy that people like to follow, lead, all that sort of stuff. They bought off that. I mean, we didn't even have routes or anything. So we were just brand new, and we told them that we were just like, we're brand new. We're going to innovate. We're going to make a difference in the marketplace. And they bought off of me. They bought me. They didn't really buy the company or the idea, the B2B, if you will.
Yeah.
They really bought like the vision of what I had and what I laid out. They bought me as a human being. They felt like they trusted me. And all that came down to my personal pop, if you will. I don't know if that fits the mold of what you describe in the book, but
It,
it came down to my personal pop. It really did. Like
Yeah.
they bought me the flavor. I showed up and I bedazzled basically.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
that's another
exactly
word,
it.
bedazzle for your
Yeah,
book.
yeah. No, I could do that. It's one of my favorite movies, by the way. But yes, there are a couple of things that buyers need to see in here. So first off, you've got to grab their attention, and the way to do that is to use language which describes their situation. One of the best things you can do, and what I would suggest is probably what you had done, Chris, in that situation, is first off, you understood the situation you were walking into. You understood the buyer's needs. You understood the situation they were in. If you
Ah,
can make any potential buyer feel that you have bugged their office, that you've got some fly on the wall that's listening into every conversation, and you're playing that back to them, they're just
mhm.
going to get that sense of, first off, they're going to say, I need to pay attention to this because it's for me. And then very quickly, they're going to say also, oh my God, this guy gets me. He understands me. You created that resonance in that situation. But shortly after that, the other thing they need to know is there's some novelty, that this isn't something they've seen or heard before. Because that part of the brain, the amygdala, the part of the brain that keeps you safe, that's listening out for stuff that it's seen or heard before. It's the same part of the brain that's going to save you from any scammers that are out there.
Mm.
And if it hears something, if you had said, we can do exactly the same as those other guys you're already working with, well, you're out the door before you've had an even chance to get the sentence out. You brought novelty, you brought enthusiasm, you brought some air of novelty to that situation that got them interested. They thought, okay, we need a new direction. This guy's the one for me.
Yeah. I mean, it just makes all the difference in personality and pop and sell and standing out. And I think, they were like, we've never had the company that we use ever come visit us, ever come care. They're just blasé, doing their thing. There was a couple extra features that we had, but we ended up doing some amazing innovation that I talk about in my book and stuff. So as we go out, tell people what you hope that they come away with from the book, what they hope they learn, et cetera, so that they do pick up the book.
Well, first off, I hope that they realize the situation that they're in, because a lot of the companies I speak to aren't really aware of this. What they feel they've got, and what is symptomatic of anybody that's perfect for the book, are those that are struggling with pipeline, with new business, with lead generation, with marketing in general. And so they're thinking, we need to do more marketing. We need to nail LinkedIn. We need to get our email list working for us. We need to do some ads. And the reality is that, as I said earlier, the message is probably the problem. It's how they're describing the value that they bring that isn't there. So I hope that people first realize they're able to diagnose the situation they're in, identify as somebody that's suffering from samenism and that tumbleweed outreach and everything that I talk about. But then that by the end of the process, that they're given a step-by-step, and there really are only 6 steps to the process in the book. By the time they get to the end of that, they've followed a logical step-by-step process to really stand out. And let's face it, you got 6 chances to differentiate in that book. You only need one real killer idea to really stand out and make a difference. And that's really what I want, is for people to go away with at least one area where they can really improve and walk away and realize the commercial benefit of that for themselves and for their business as well.
Most definitely. In fact, those companies that we acquired early on in that company, with my personality and my drive and my chutzpah, whatever you want to call it, my bedazzling, those companies stayed with us for over 13 years. We still had the original core companies that I talked into my bedazzling to start the corporation. They were with us for 13 years, and if I hadn't shut the company down, because we had other things we wanted to do, it would have been going for, I don't know, probably still be around today, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, it actually might have been. I mean, they really trusted us. They were really interesting. In fact, I turned the company over to my business partner to run for several years. I think 7 or 8 years he ran it, and I disappeared into our other companies, but they all kind of knew I ran it. And then when my partner resigned from our company after 13 years, I called them all up, and they were like, "Oh, it's Chris Voss. Yeah, we and so that investment in that pop of me and bedazzling and stuff, and not being just we're another courier company. You want to piss?
Yeah.
Meh, right? That bedazzling lasted, and the imprint that it made in their brain. I just quoted you some commercials that I still remember, and I remember those brands. That's how powerful those viral
Yeah.
commercials were. I still remember them, and I really don't want to. I
Well,
didn't.
first,
The
Chris, I mean,
unicorn pooing into the cup was a little much, but
I'm going to walk away with that image for sure. But listen, what you did first and foremost is you followed through on your initial promise. I mean, they don't stick around unless you're able to back up what you say in those initial meetings and conversations and how you position yourself. But the other thing is, when you get your positioning right, you attract more of those organizations, more of those individuals, and people do business with people, whether it's B2B, whether it's B2C. You're going to get people who really buy into your values, your message, and just your way of working, and the longevity that comes with the result of that. I mean, often we're talking about the initial wins, the size of contracts, there's shorter sales cycles, bigger pipelines. The other thing that it really impacts is how long your clients stick around, that retention element, the lifetime value of those relationships that you're creating. And it even permeates into other areas as well, Chris. I mean, think about the world of talent attraction, the importance of having an employer brand where people want to swim oceans to come and work for you. That's what great positioning can do as well. It can attract the best talent. And there's a lot of competition for that as well, isn't there? I mean, especially as smaller organizations competing with the big boys for the best people. That's what positioning can do for you as well.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much for coming on, Matt. We really appreciate it. Give us your .coms as we go out so people can find you on the interwebs again.
Yeah, come visit totalgrowthownership.com. It's a long one, I know. But otherwise, find me on LinkedIn, Matt Hodkinson, and I'm happy to talk to any one of you about this.
There you go. Thank you very much, Matthew, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
It's been a blast. Thank you, Chris.
There you go. And thanks for tuning in. Order of the book where refined books are sold. Escapology, how to turn your carbon copy B2B company into a growth machine with differentiation, positioning, and unturned downable offers. You got to love it. Thanks to my audience for being here. As always, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss. Chris Voss won the TikTok and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you.